Quick show of hands, who in the room uses data on a daily basis? Okay, everyone in the room. Keep your hands up.
That was easy.
Keep your hand up if the data that you use is all in one clean, concise place for you to easily pull from and distribute to your users. You should come teach, because we have not figured that one out yet.
So, just out of curiosity, how many of you are in financial services? That we kind of figured that. So I'll try to tone it down with acronyms and things like that, but it's good to know that you'll hopefully know what some of them are. But how many of you have done like a personal budget or a financial plan for yourself at home, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, or maybe use something like Mint? A good amount of you, because you all work in financial services, shocker, that's great. How many of you found that process easy? Simple, quick? Couple, okay, that's good. My name's David First. I'm with the Advice and Research Group of Wells Fargo Advisors, based in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm joined here by John Miller. And what we're here to talk to you today is how we use Tableau, but in ways that you might not expect. Now, John and I have been coming to the Tableau conference. This is our third year, right? So the previous 2 years, we were attendees. We looked at sessions. We learned some things, did some hands-on training. But this year, we were talking to ourselves in the office, and we have some things that we thought you might think were cool. So we decided we should share them.
Yep. Like David said, my name is John Miller. Very excited to be speaking with you all this afternoon. And part of what David and I do, like he said, we work in the Advice and Research Group at Wells Fargo Advisors in St. Louis, Missouri. And part of our role is to help quantify the quality of advice that our clients receive. Be it from some of our tools, some of our resources, or from our advisors themselves. How do we quantify that quality of advice to make sure our clients are satisfied in achieving their life goals? And we have Tableau to thank for that. Now, 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when we started becoming Tableau users, it quickly became the replacement for all of our messy Excel sheets and became our go-to tool for data visualization. But over time, Tableau has evolved into something that we use for really just about everything, and we're going to show you some of those examples today. Now, a quick agenda. I'm going to start by telling you the story everyone tells. Every breakout you go to, someone's going to talk about how they changed their messy Excel spreadsheets into the beautiful Tableau dashboards that you'll see up on the screen. But we're also going to walk you through a couple demos today, starting with the deep dashboard. I talked about data being in 10 different places. We've built a tool that helps our advisors uncover opportunities for clients using one big Tableau dashboard in kind of the more traditional way that Tableau is used. We'll then shift gears and talk about how we're using Tableau for storyboarding for mobile applications. And lastly, we in Advice and Research have redefined how our clients view and digest market research reports. And we really have Tableau to thank for that, so we'll show you that as well. We'll wrap up with what's next for us on the horizon, and then if we have a little bit of time, we'll end with a Q&A. Now, before we get into that, David, let's talk about where we sit in Wells Fargo and kind of how the overall Wells Fargo structure is working right now.
Thanks, John. So for those who don't know, Wells Fargo is a really big bank. It is headquartered in San Francisco, California, but we have divisions that are based all over the place. John and I are based in St. Louis. We work in the brokerage division. We have offices in Charlotte, Minneapolis, New York, all over the place. We have 250,000 employees spread throughout 3 primary divisions. There's some support structures too, but primarily we have our community bank, handles things like ATMs, checking accounts, savings accounts, credit cards, stuff like that. We have our investment bank, which is based in New York, handles things like initial public offerings, debt issuances for companies, things like that. And then you have the division that John and I work in. That's the brokerage division. Some of us are in St. Louis, some of us are in Charlotte, but what we do is we have over 15,000 financial advisors spread all throughout the country in branches, just like this, helping clients with their financial goals. Now, our clients could be anyone from an individual family, a small business, or an institution, anywhere from $50 to $50 million. We distribute this advice primarily through our network of financial advisors in branches, but we also have an online presence with our online trading platform called Wells Trade, and we also have an automated investing solution or a robo-advisor for those of you who are in financial services, which is everybody called intuitive investor. So what we're doing when we're building Tableau dashboards is what makes our use case unique, and really what we're here to talk to you about today. Tableau for us is built around our users, which are financial advisors and branch managers. Now, these folks might not be as technology savvy as the folks in this room today, but that's not to say that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just adds a layer of complexity to our design process. The other thing that we have to plan for is our branch network, which is spread all throughout the country. Some folks have clients that have different needs or different types of clients. All of these different data sources and different data types go into what we have to build into our dashboards to make them usable.
Okay. I don't know about you, David, but when I look at this slide, I just think it gives me nightmares. For those of you that don't know what these screenshots are, it's several lines of code in VBA, and the bottom image is version number 43 of an Excel file that's 150 megabytes. This was us 3 years ago. This is how we were doing our reporting. Like David said, we have a large branch network we need to distribute all our reports out to. And this process took us hours, took us days. Very cumbersome, several iterations like you can see, all types of PDFing, again, using VBA. And the outputs look like this. I look at this now and I just think,
great.
Ew. Again, at the time we thought, it's got everything you need. It's a big data table, has all the branch information on there. The manager calls in, asks for a different metric. Yeah, it's there. It's on page 14, line 25. You know, at the time, again, it worked. It was printed out on legal paper, and it was just the way we had to do it. But we knew it was time for a facelift. It was really time for some new process, something we were going to do to combine all this data into one spot. And that's where our first demo today will show us. So as David pulls this up, this is a tool we have out there called the Advice, Detail, and Performance tool. We call it ADAPT. Now, maybe you all know in the industry that we use a lot of acronyms, and that just happened to be the acronym that worked for us. And we actually looked back on it recently. It's kind of symbolic because it worked for the name of the tool, but it's also we're adapting to the new way that we're getting our advisors information. Now, the audience for ADAPT is our financial advisors throughout the country, as well as our regional productivity managers. So their roles are, they're out in the field, and they help coach advisors. They have one-on-one sessions with advisors to uncover opportunities for clients, to have coaching sessions to figure out where we can implement more best practices. So again, ADAPT is helping us do exactly that. Now, before David dives into each piece of the tool, I want to start here, which is the home page, the landing page. Some of you may have heard the term dashboard of dashboards. David and I picked up from that idea at a Tableau conference 2 years ago, sitting in your all's shoes, that it'd be great to make sure we have a landing page, a home page for someone to always come back to make sure our repeat users can be familiar, not get lost in the various different places to click. So having that landing page really creates a consistent user experience. So David, let's click into the first one, the Adapt Search function. Now, the Adapt Search is the start of the tool. Think of it as the 100,000-foot view. Like David said, our branch network spans from coast to coast. We have 13 different regions at Wells Fargo Advisors. Within those regions, we have 90 different markets. So think of markets as large cities, like the Las Vegas market or the New York market. Within those markets, we have 900 branches. So the user of this tool may want to know, where do I want to plan my coaching trip? Where do I want to go next? If they don't know, they can use this again to uncover opportunity by looking at different business metrics out there to kind of shrink the map, if you will. So look at the top of the page. A couple things I want you to pay attention to is one, just those brief instructions. I know it's a little hard to read, but we try and do this as much as we can for our users just to provide a couple bullets to say, here's where you need to look next, or here's maybe how you work this dashboard, how you click through it. And it creates a much more consistent, a better, quicker, faster user experience. Now there's also some radio buttons up there. What those do is those control these cascading tree maps below. So you're seeing 3 tree maps but it's actually stacking several, 15, 20 different iterations of tree maps that allows the user to customize how they want to view the size of each tree map, as well as the color. So as David plays around with the different options, he could maybe move the size to be client assets, or maybe it's clients that are underperforming, and the color might be clients who need a financial review. Those are just examples of some metrics we're looking at, but we're not telling the user how they have to search. The user can use this tool to determine how they want to search. And as they click through each cascading tree map, the map shrinks and the list of advisors pops up. And now ultimately it comes all the way down to one individual advisor that they know they can have a conversation with. So David, now that we've picked our metrics, let's back out and let's go into an individual advisor's book of business. So what this tool is here is this is the FA Book Insights page. What this is essentially doing is providing an advisor with a report card of what his or her book looks like. Now when I say book of business, I mean the aggregation of clients' accounts and assets. Within this tool, we have loaded over 15,000 advisors that total up to 2 million client households, 4 million client accounts, and hundreds of billions of dollars of client assets, all powered behind this tool. Now we've dummied down and demoed all this data where we can move it a lot quicker and cipher through a couple things, but as David goes through the filter at the top of the page, can select a different advisor. It's selected already by branch, so pre-filtered on the page before to select those advisors in that branch. And again, it'll populate an entire page, a one-pager that kind of shows an advisor what his or her book looks like. So a couple other takeaways from this page. It is designed to be printed. Some people might cringe at that because I know Tableau is not best to be printed, it's best to be interactive. But in a optimistic and a perfect world, all of our advisors would use Tableau Server the same way that you and I do. And they would click through and filter and use the tool, like I said, like we do. But in reality, we're just not there yet. So some of the things we build, we have to make sure we have the easy print function. Make sure it's PDFable. And what that causes is that limits interactivity. As you all are, I'm sure, well aware, when you print something in Tableau, you lose a lot of the functions. But again, knowing our audience, that's what they want for this type of page. So what we do here is if David scrolls down, one thing you'll notice is this little page break, so this black bar, but below it, we have a whole big, bold adapt disclosures. Those of you in the industry can probably appreciate that anything we distribute out to our advisors is loaded with disclosures to make sure that our legal, risk, compliance teams are happy, satisfied. So we use this part, and we've set the page up where when you print this one page, it looks very nice and clean. The front is your report card, and the back is all the disclosures, as well as below a definition section. Because like I said, when you print, you lose tooltips. So we need to make sure we're defining every single metric that's on this page, so the adapt definitions will populate in that printed page below. So again, kind of knowing your audience, making sure you're working with the clientele that this is designed for. So David, let's back out. So we'll go one step further. Now we've shrunken down into a branch. We've talked to an individual financial advisor. And now we want to look at the individual accounts in that advisor's book that we may have discussed about best practices, a couple outlier accounts. That's where this FA Portfolio tab comes into play. So we've now shrunk down from a high-level, countrywide view into an individual FA's book and every single client populated on this book, on this page. So consistency is key here. Same look and feel at the top of the page. It's the radio button filtering, making sure if you want to switch FAs, you can do that there. But what David can do is use the radio buttons to shrink the population of these dots below. Now the dots are every single client's investment account in the advisor's book plotted on an efficient frontier. So on a risk and return basis to determine how the client is performing and what risk level they're taking on over the last couple of years. So again, very important information to an advisor and very quickly a way to identify what might be some outliers. Now, if you don't want to look at the entire book, again, you can filter based on some asset levels or other types of best practices. Maybe you want to look at clients who are in managed products. But David can also select individual households in the filtering. So he can click an actual household name, and that individual dot pops up. So in this example, David selects a client name. He can hover over that household in the tooltip, because this is not one that's designed to be printed. And that tooltip contains all sorts of pertinent information for that advisor about that individual client. So quickly, going from all the way up at the top of the book, all the way down into something where we're at the client individual account level and uncovering opportunities for those clients. Okay, David, last step in Adapt. Now we've talked about the clients that we want to have conversations with. So what we like to do is we like to make sure we give our advisors a take-home, some sort of homework. That's where the Adapt list page comes into play. So again, in the ideal state, everything will be done in Tableau, but oftentimes our users want something to take away in something like Excel. So we do have to set up our page here with that in mind. So what this essentially is this is a large data table that's designed to be exported into Excel, but instead of just dumping everything that we've talked about all throughout the other pages onto this Adapt list page, we've created more efficient extracts. Again, using that radio button functionality to stack on top of different data tables based on the button you select. So today, if David and I had a conversation with an advisor about client performance, they can list all the clients and any metric, any 10 metrics that pertain to performance will be pre-filtered for them, and they can select that list. Or if we had a conversation about clients' annual reviews, a new entire spreadsheet can populate, again, and we're filtering and controlling the data points that the advisor sees. Because oftentimes our advisors want everything until they get everything. Then they tell us it's too much, it's too big. So the way to do that is, again, to create these more efficient extracts and make that information more digestible for our advisors. Okay, so that's Adapt. So let's back out here, David. It's quite an evolution from where we were 3 years ago. And what this is sort of showing is the progress of this evolution. This was not built overnight by any means. Several iterations of this dashboard were put into place. And I think another reason that this has become very successful for us is because we incorporate a lot of user feedback. We're constantly changing out sheets within some of the report card pages or the portfolio pages based on the coaches or the advisors themselves that say, hey, I would love to see this visualized that way, or hey, I'm not using this information as much, we're wasting space here. So we're making sure we're incorporating and having that active feedback to create a better user experience. Now, this has gone from reporting that took us hours and days to this Adapt tool that updates with live data every single night, that our users can log onto our server and click and find the most recent day's data. And I do want to pause here and just remind everyone that David and I are a small piece in this puzzle. We have some awesome team members here in St. Louis, all in the front row. Hey guys, wave your hands. That have helped us with all this. We've been very lucky to have a strong group of Tableau users in St. Louis, a handful that are here and several more back home that have helped us build all these different awesome tools. With that being said, if you have any very difficult questions about how we prepped this data for this tool, I will deflect them all to Robbie here in the front row. And if you don't want to ask him now, he said he doesn't mind, just come tap on his shoulder at Data Night Out tomorrow night and ask him then. He won't mind. So, David, we've talked about a more traditional, a couple takeaways here. One, create a landing page. I think that it's something that seems like simple, but oftentimes it's overlooked. A landing page really creates, again, a consistent user experience. It's clean. It'll save you from a lot of questions. And that also goes with providing dashboard instructions. It'll save you phone calls. A quick call saying, hey, John, I can't figure out this filter's not working, or I'm not sure which one to click on next. I can't revert my dashboard. A couple instructions at the top of the page will save you so much time. And lastly, know your audience. If your audience needs the ability to PDF, design it with that in mind. I know it limits the interactivity and the functionality of Tableau, but if you want your users to use every piece of what you're putting out there, know your audience. That goes with the efficient extract examples as well. Okay, let's switch gears here. So we talked a little bit about a very traditional way that we're using Tableau, but these next two examples are some more non-traditional ways we're using Tableau, and David's going to talk about how we're using Tableau for storyboarding mobile applications. David?
Thank you. So before we go through the next tool, I want to introduce you to Emily. This is Emily. Emily's in her mid-30s. She has a budding career and a new family. Like many of you, she does financial planning and budgeting kind of on her own with an Excel spreadsheet at home. What we've done is built something in Tableau to allow Emily to visualize her financial data in a much easier way than doing it on her own. John? So this is what we built. It looks exactly like the Wells Fargo application that if you're a client, it'll look something similar. But what we've done is we've used Tableau to create a storyboard of what a financial application could look like to help Emily with her financial goals. Now, what we've built into this are a number of tabs there down at the bottom. We have spending and budgets, a summary of her accounts and investments, and then her financial plan. She can enter each one of these modules separately, but they're all interconnected. But let's start with Emily's financial plan. So when you enter the financial planning module, you're greeted with pictures. This is a common theme that we've discovered when we've been building these type of things for storyboarding is the more you can use images, the better impact and the quicker impact you can have with your users or the people that you're presenting to. So what Emily sees when she logs into her financial plan are some pictures of her financial goals. She's got a vacation house in the top left, maybe paying off student debt at the top right, or a new motorcycle, or paying off her brand new truck, or planning for a family. But before we look at her aspirational goals, let's look at some of Emily's goals or some of the things that Emily has to plan for that she doesn't want to happen. That's where this other module comes in. So Emily also needs to think about a number of other things, right? What happens if she gets injured? What happens if a tree falls on her house? What happens if there's a zombie apocalypse? Let's look at the injury module. When Emily enters the injury module, she sees a number of assumptions that she can interact with her data. We're using Tableau parameters and these sliders to allow Emily to input assumptions and adjust a probability of these things potentially happening. So let's say Emily just found out the great news that she's expecting a child. So let's go down there and bump the probability of a child up to 100%. And what you'll see is the recommended emergency fund that the application is recommending for Emily will adjust accordingly.
Kids are expensive.
That doesn't include college. Let's back out one. Those are pretty common, right? Planning for a child, planning for a home repair. What happens when Emily needs to prepare for the zombie apocalypse? Let's look at the zombie apocalypse module. So what Emily sees in the zombie apocalypse module is a recommendation of an asset allocation that the application is recommending that she keep in her basement. So she has 20% of her recommended allocation to rations, some of gold and gasoline. If she follows this recommendation with the recommended emergency fund, the application is calculating a probability that she'll survive the zombie apocalypse of 72%. That's pretty good.
She's ready.
She's ready. Let's back out a couple. So let's look at some of her aspirational goals. She doesn't want the zombie apocalypse to happen, hopefully. So let's take a look at the house that she's saving for. When Emily enters the house that she's saving for, a portion of this module, she sees her assumptions on the left with the picture that she can upload. In this case, she needs $100,000, and she'd like to have this goal achieved 15 years from now or sooner. She can adjust those assumptions, but what we're doing is showing her financial data in a visual way. Tableau is allowing us to use a stacked bar chart to show what percentage of the goal is achieved, and a projection using the analytics functions that are built into Tableau of what we think her investments and her contributions are going to allow her to achieve her goal. So in this case, we're saying that the goal can be achieved by 2034, which is within the 15 years that she'd like. And we're showing her a breakdown of how much of that goal that she funded with contributions herself, so things like deposits, and what percentage of the goal was achieved with investment performance. But let's take one step deeper. Let's zoom in a little bit. Emily also sees a confidence interval around the goal that she's projecting. So right now, the dark purple line is showing where she stands today, and the horizontal line shows the home value of the goal. Now, again, using the home value parameter over to the left, let's say the house or the housing market she's looking in got really hot and it's more expensive. She can up the assumption of the goal that she needs, and the chart will adjust to show her how that impacts her financial goals. We're using built-in functions in Tableau's Analytics tab, things like confidence intervals and the exponential smoothing projections that are built in to show her not only where she is today, but where she is likely to be in the future. Let's take another step back. Let's look at her truck. Emily has this nice truck that she has a loan on. She can see, using Tableau, that if she's financially minded, that amortization chart in the top might look familiar. But if you're unfamiliar, what we're trying to do here is show Emily her financial data in a number of different ways. Some folks are more visual learners. John, I think you would agree that you are too, and I am as well. So what we're doing is we're giving her options. She can view her financial data in a chart that she can interact with the parameters that she can adjust, but we're also giving her the table below it, the data that's driving the chart above. Some folks might like to see the individual breakdown of every payment, what payment, how much of that was principal, how much of that was interest. We're giving her options. We're not prescribing one way for Emily to interact with her data. Let's take a step back. So we've gone over some of Emily's goals. Those are great, but they're built on her activity, her behavior. What can Emily do on a day-to-day basis to help her achieve her long-term financial goals? That's where the spending and budget module comes in. Emily can look at all of her transactions from her credit cards and debit cards, categorized with the color-coded lines, with toggles down at the bottom for date ranges, accounts to be included, and the category of spending. So right now she's looking at food and shopping. We can take out other income, and what we're doing is showing her the variation of her spending from month to month with a projection for the next year and a confidence interval around that. Now there's a moving average line, that's that dashed purple line that's there, that's showing, yes, there is some variation on a month-to-month basis, but overall that line is relatively flat. So that category of spending is pretty consistent. Let's zoom in. So if we dive deeper into her food category, we can see the subcategories that make up that. She has the majority of her budget or spending being taken up with groceries, with the brown line, and the second most with the gray line of restaurants. She can see what she's spending, where she's spending it, and a projection of how that spending is going to change over time. If we go one step deeper, Emily can not only see the transactions by category, we're giving her two options again. We're giving her a bar chart of her spending with a specific vendor in a specific category, in this case it's Starbucks, with a bar chart above with the monthly spending of Starbucks and the individual transactions below. What we're showing is an average line there that looks like she's spending on average about $60 a month at Starbucks, and a projection of where we think that spending was going to go going forward. Once again, the confidence interval is pretty wide, and the average line shows a pretty good estimate of what she's spending. So with this application, we've built everything that we were going to storyboard of a potential Wells Fargo application in Tableau. Thank you.
Sure. So let's talk about a couple takeaways from this demo. One, more problems equals more room for creativity. Now, when David was tasked with the assignment to go create a storyboard for a potential investment application, David's not a graphic designer. I'm not a graphic designer. We kind of scratched our heads for a little bit. We knew there were a couple online applications, some Adobe, other softwares where we could maybe storyboard a mobile app, but we just kind of looked back and thought, we know Tableau the best. Let's just try Tableau first, and it worked out. So finding those more creative ways to incorporate Tableau into your everyday lives. Hold your user's hand. We make that storyboard very easy. As David's telling the story, it's very easy to know where to hover to next. Using those buttons, using different icons, it's very easy for the user in this application to not get lost, to know there's always a home button, there's always somewhere else to go, another way to dig deeper. That goes along with using images. The power of images in our dashboards is astronomical. When David was talking about Emily's financial goals of saving for a vacation home, a lot of you probably missed it. But when we show those up on a screen, on a dashboard with images, it really hits home. It resonates with the user. It resonates with clients. It makes life goals more tangible. So using the images is very powerful in our industry and for what we do when we're designing these, as well as simple things, like David using the iPhone background in the dashboard. When he showed that to our senior leaders, they were blown away that this was all done in Tableau. Now, you all might not be blown away, but keep in mind, you just went to a keynote speaker talking about how Tableau is using machine learning in the next year. Our senior leaders back home were not on that same page. So we show them a stock phone image in a Tableau dashboard and mind blown. So again, the power of images really goes a long way in making your dashboard seem more personable and more relatable. Okay, last example. Like I mentioned earlier, Tableau has helped us redefine how all of our clients at WFA view market data, view our market research reports, and David's going to show you how we're doing that.
Breaking news, everybody. Our industry has discovered the cure for insomnia. They're called reports. Did you all get all that? Are you impressed that we use the term price to cash flow ratio and buyback yield? It's okay, I'm confused too. These reports have been, these bodies of text have been the norm in our industry for a really, really, really long time. The funniest thing about that is some folks in the home office still think clients actually read these. We were tasked a few years ago with coming up with an alternative way of displaying and explaining financial concepts in an easier to understand way. What we've done is we've used Tableau to make charts and graphics the centerpiece of these reports. What we do is we take a concept, we find the most effective chart to visualize it, and we put it in a report to make clients actually understand it. Now, what we found is when we use graphics, relatable examples, and charts like this in our reports, not only do clients actually finish reading the document, and we try to keep them short, but they actually retain the information, which is the whole purpose of these reports to begin with. So when John and I were tasked with creating something like this, our immediate first step was Tableau. We knew Tableau could make the prettiest charts. Now, the problem with that was this. The reports that we publish are not published, they're published with Word or Adobe or some other publishing software. We publish them in print versions, we publish them to the website in interactive versions. But what we did was we started with Tableau, and the version we had to screenshot images of charts to put them into Microsoft Word. Now, I see a couple people nodding. So if you don't know, what happens when you do that is you get a JPEG that is really low quality, and when you put it into Word, it gets compressed. And when our publishers went to resize these images or change them, they get really blurry, totally unreadable. The text looks really crisp, the chart looks like garbage. And we knew that that was not okay. We put a lot of time and effort in creating these charts, and they're just not as impactful if they don't look as clean. So what we thought, we racked our brains. We played with Microsoft Word settings, the import, compression, image, all that stuff, until we finally figured out that instead of taking the chart to the report, we decided to try bringing the report to the chart. And that's what we're going to show you now. In Tableau, on a dashboard, you have the option in the top left to size it the same size as a piece of paper. So that's where we started. The reports that we created look exactly like the templates that we create in Microsoft Word and other applications, but we're replicating that functionality in Tableau. We have a letter portrait dashboard with an image of our logo, all of the correct fonts, and all of the formatting to match our normal reports. We're using text boxes to house all the data, and we're building the report around the chart that we created to begin with. Now, what that allows you to do is to make your chart as pretty as it was when you created it. That presents a number of problems, though. Once again, when John explained that because these are designed to be printed, you can't use things like tooltips. Now, what that forces you to do is be more liberal with your labeling. So things that might be obvious to you because you're the creator of the chart or the dashboard is not going to be obvious to the person reading it for the first time. That's where we go overboard with labels. We have comments on the takeaways of the chart. We make sure everything is labeled and clearly visible. because the person that created the chart is the person that knows the chart best. Someone that picks up the report, especially if they're not initiated on financial concepts, or should not be expected to be able to interpret a financial chart without a little help. Now, you can see as John hovers or scrolls through all the pages, each of the pages of the dashboard is a page in the report. You can aggregate them all together, print them to PDF, we can send them to our website, we can publish them in HTML, and we can send them all in PDF and email too. Now, when we first published these a couple years ago, the feedback was incredible. It's not hard to imagine when you go from a solid block of text to a really colorful chart report that looks like that, but we were blown away with the adoption of something like this. And the charts in Tableau really allowed us to do that best.
Mm-hmm. So a few takeaways here. Like David mentioned, the power of using labels. The person who understands the chart or the viz best is the creator. And that causes us to have to overload with labels. And we may think it's overloading, but again, some of these concepts are very difficult for our clients to understand. There are all sorts of complex charts and graphs out there, so we've found that using more and more labels over time has really helped us and helped our clients increase the number of reads we're getting, increase the number of clicks we're getting. So again, using labels has been a great takeaway from this project. Common problems may have uncommon solutions. David talked about the problem of, okay, we figured it out. We're going to make our reports more visual by using Tableau, but the problem was we were bringing that Tableau image into a Word document, and it became a huge issue. So the common solution, bringing that back into Tableau, seems to fix all of our problems. And again, that tends to be the theme here, is the more that we're using Tableau in our everyday work and our everyday lives, the easier things become. Now, it might seem like we're doing a little bit of Microsoft Office bashing here, but I don't want you to think that's the case. We know that Excel and PowerPoint are great things, so we're not trying to get rid of them, we're just trying to replicate them. Another example that we weren't able to walk through today are things like when we get fire drill PowerPoint presentations, they're asked by our senior leaders, say, hey, we need you to build this, put this together right now. So we immediately go into Tableau and build all of our charts and graphs and put them into PowerPoint. And I know some of the newer versions of Tableau allow you to embed in PowerPoint, but we're not on that version yet. So we create a PowerPoint template in Tableau. So it has all of our PowerPoint brand standards, has the page numbers, Wells Fargo logo. So when we're distributing it, it looks and feels like a PowerPoint presentation, but again, in reality, we're using Tableau for everything. And lastly, this one's for the Tableau folks. Please add spell check. David is very good at writing research reports, but he's not the best speller. So when he writes and spends all his time all day just in his office, going to town, writing papers, then he has to put it in Tableau, or he pulls it back out in Microsoft Word and corrects his 15 spelling errors, and then puts it back into Tableau again. So Tableau might, again, now have spell check, but the version we're on, it doesn't. So it'd be great if we could get spell check in our next Tableau version. Okay, so what comes next? So to wrap this all up, for us, Tableau is a journey, not a destination. We continue to find more creative ways to incorporate it into all that we do. And that's really our challenge for you all today, is not just to use Tableau to replace your spreadsheets and replace your regular reporting, but find new ways to use Tableau. It's a very adaptable, very versatile software that can be kind of customized to a lot of unique things. And we kind of plug and chug and try different ways to do that on a daily basis. And these are some of the things that come out of it. So hopefully you've all learned a few things today. Learn how we're helping make our clients' lives easier, making our advisors' lives easier. And if you didn't learn that, maybe you also now rest assured we are planning for our clients' survival of the zombie apocalypse. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, feel free.